Approached from the bridge, Lynchburg College Lake floods upon the sight of newness, for it is an infant lake, almost full-grown in a few short weeks of time. As yet, its winding form embodies no tradition of its own. Its waters hold no secret of a forgotten past. What memories are there derived from previous existence before the highway dam came across the ravine in solid steps of concrete? When little boys swam in Blackwater Creek, sophomores plunged offending freshmen into its midnight waters, sweethearts strolled in banks, and frolicking students held picnics in the dell beyond the footlog. This was taken directly from an article published in the Front Rank on April 28, 1935. College Lake was a fundamental part of the Lynchburg College student experience, as well as a beautiful view for Lynchburg citizens. How did this beautiful lake evolve to its current status today? First, let's go back in time a bit to the origins of College Lake. As documented in a 1934 Critograph article, Lynchburg College began the construction of College Lake. The lake's original design was to be 1.5 miles long. The spillway was proposed to be 60 feet long and have a clearance of 15 feet. It was stated that these measurements would be sufficient to carry enough water in time of floods. College Lake was planned to be about 1.5 miles long, but narrow in parts, but wide enough to make it an attractive body of water. The landscape was overseen by Mr. Neal of the Virginia Highway Department. The lake was aimed to be filled by winter 1934 so that students could enjoy water sports in the spring. To gain a better understanding of the student use of College Lake, Dr. Dorothy Bundy Potter and Dr. Clifton Potter were kind enough to share their experiences with us. Not only are the Potters professors at LC, they are alumni of the classes of 1962 and 1964, and are college sweethearts.
Well, not being from Lynchburg, my understanding of the lake really relates to what I used to do here as a student. We walked around the lake, we hiked around it. There was a place where one could picnic. The lake was used for ice skating when it was cold enough, and most of the time it wasn't, so it was considered a recreational area, but a somewhat marginal one. There were students who liked to fish, and actually there were students, or at least part of the time I was here, who liked to hunt, and they were allowed to have guns, and they would go around the lake and shoot small game.
As a kid, when I was a scout, and this would be the early 50s, we used to hike around the lake. My patrol contained a member whose father taught chemistry here, Dr. Everett, and so we had permission to hike around the lake, which we did.
In February 1935, sewer lines were placed along the lake to prevent pollution from entering the water.
I think people were less concerned about pollution in those days, both animals and runoff and things like that. The important thing was having enough water space to be able to enjoy it, and a boathouse was built, as you mentioned.
Where they kept the canoes.
And there were canoes, and this was a form of entertainment that was considered appropriate for college students to do.
Pollution becomes a problem after World War II, when an area called Stewart Heights, which is off of Thomas Road, was developed for housing. And there were not adequate safeguards to prevent runoff, and sewer lines were laid, and eventually one of those sewer pipes burst and polluted the lake. So by the 1950s, it was not used for swimming. Boating was okay, and ice skating was all right, but and it was beginning to silt up. as early as the mid-50s. But it's because of runoff from construction and the lack of adequate controls over it. And I gather that some of the silt that is in the lake is not just from Stewart Heights, it's from out in Campbell County, because it's carried by the streams that feed Blackwater Creek.
Raw sewage pollution. I mean, the awareness of pollution has risen dramatically over the last 50 years. But in the 1950s and 60s, there was not a terrible concern about chemical pollution or the kinds of things that have fouled many water systems and waterways in the country. It was more the sewage and then the sediment that began to be a concern for College Lake. Well, it had already begun to see changes for the worse in terms of the sewage problem I mentioned earlier, which was a problem of an integrated stormwater and sanitary sewer system that overflowed into College Lake with severe rainstorm events. But it was in the late 60s, early 70s that you began to see more and more mud washing into the lake. And the people, my colleagues who lived on Faculty Drive were very much aware of that.
The lake just continues to fill in with a tremendous amount of sediment. And so over the last few years, we've seen a lot of sediment continue to fill the lake. We've seen a lot of marsh and cattail growth. And the lake is changing over from a deep lake to a shallow wetland. Is more of a kind of a detention pond than really an ecosystem. It gets so much water flowing through it, and all of that water has been heavily impacted by development throughout Lynchburg. So it really operates as a gigantic detention pond that just captures a lot of sediment.
By 1995, erosion proved to be a main issue of College Lake. The spillway could no longer handle the amount of water during storms and floods. The city of Lynchburg began looking at options for the future of College Lake in 2014. These options revolved around the dam area close to the highway. The city of Lynchburg is concerned that if the lake overflowed and water went on top of it, it would destroy the dam and cause a catastrophic flooding event. The city planners presented options to fix the dam, which means that they will fill it with concrete, or the other option is to get rid of the dam altogether and replace it with a bridge, allowing the current lake bed to fill in over time and be reclaimed as a forest or wetland.
Right now, it's doing, we estimate almost $14 million a year worth of environmental services from that point of view. So that it would be worth fixing the dam, if nothing more, than to maintain that current level of these water quality services that it's providing.
This fall, the president of Lynchburg College and Dr. Shahady have been in communication with the city of Lynchburg to discuss a decision for the lake. Since it is currently indefinite if College Lake will be around much longer, students should take advantage of this serene escape while it is still here. Follow in the footsteps of Lynchburg College alumni and make some of your 4 years of adventures at College Lake.